after those who are believers. Now, if you look at a chapter like this, which is named as believers, you'd imagine that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will highlight the subject matter of this surah to dedicate toward those individuals who are classified according to the Islamic perspective as mu'mineen, as believers. Now, without using this term loosely as we do sometime, let's dive into and see from the perspective of Quran and the ahadith of Masumeen, who are the believers? What are their characteristics, and how can one aspire to become one of them, or those who are considered to be believers in the rightful meaning and not the terminology that you and I might use sometimes. The first 11 ayat of this surah, they highlight and they talk about the characteristics and the traits of mu'mineen and the criterion for success and failure by highlighting the qualities and the personal traits of those who will attain this higher rank and will be entered into the paradise that Allah has created for them. But before that, the concept of Iman is discussed and defined as to these are truly those who are considered to be mu'min. This assertion goes to remind us that the criterion for success and failure does not depend on how we perceive things in our worldly matters, rather on what has been established by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through His guidance is how we perceive things. So there's a difference of perceiving things. We might think that the worldly ups and downs, ebbs and flows, and the worldly success that we see in certain individual highlights to us that individual is successful. No. What the criteria Islam has set and ayat of Quran have set, that is the true criteria for success. So don't always measure success according to what you see and perceive in the world. Rather see it and perceive it through the idea which is presented by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through His guidance. The verses begin by saying, certainly the faithful have attained salvation. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Mu'min is someone who has attained salvation. You look at ulama talk about it, and I'm not here to explain the tafsir because this is not the time for doing the tafsir of it. But the fact that Allah uses past tense is very critical over here. He said, aflaha yuflihu, iflah is a past tense. Aflaha is a past tense, which comes from falah, which comes from success, which comes from salvation. The fact that Allah uses past tense, qad aflaha al-mu'minun, tells you, and I'll give you an example of this past tense. If you have ever attended a wedding, usually the scholars who are pronouncing the sigha of marriage, the contract of marriage, they use past tense, although they're doing it right now. They're reciting it in front of you. They should be reading what? The present tense or the future. That I, put these two into marriage right now, but rather the past tense, ankahto is used, zavvajto is used, which is the past tense. This is where qasd insha comes into play, which means that if something is used in the past tense, it's inevitable that it'll take place. There's no doubt about that thing happening. How can I give an example? For example, you see someone driving really carelessly on the road, and you say out of fear, ye to gaya, he's gone. Gone, he's not gone yet, but you're using the past tense because you're so sure because of the carelessness, this person is gone. And that tells you the inevitable nature of that happening. When Allah says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ, that is also translating to us the fact that mu'min is already successful. Don't need to do anything further along with that. Why? Those who are humble in their prayers, those who avoid vain talks, carry out their duty of zakat, guard their private parts, except from their spouses, for then they are not blameworthy. This is where ulama and the scholars dive into the concept of success and salvation for those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala considers to be mu'min. In the time that I have, I will only go over 5 of these, and inshallah we'll continue in the weeks to come. First one says, those who establish prayer and solemnity and with submissiveness. This is the importance. You and all are gathered here to pray. One of the main objectives and the purpose behind the creation of insan is what? Surah Dhariyat says it very clearly, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. One of the main purposes of the creation of insan, differentiating from other creatures, is that he's created to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of the best ways of worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through this salat that we offer. The Arabic word with khushu' refers to standing in prayers with complete devotion, attention, and submissiveness. If we were to elaborate on this, it would liken to standing in complete awe and in complete submission towards someone who's a higher authority than you. I don't want to compare anyone with Allah, but imagine if there was a higher authority whom you must be submissive to, how would you stand in front of that individual, that superior being, out of respect and as well as out of love? I think a fatherly figure or a grandfather in the house, how you stand in front of them with respect and as well as there's love that you have. Khushu' is also a means of attaining peace when the mind and the tongue are both aligned and in the state of harmony. We mentioned the word khudu and khushu in our tafsir sessions during the month of Ramadan, so I won't go in depth of that. A true believer consciously makes an effort to perform their prayers with concentration and full devotion. They're mindful of their thoughts and even their actions during the prayers for the sake of protecting the honor of their worship. This salat should not be taken loosely and lightly, that we're just fulfilling our duty. The honor behind the fact that you've been given this honor to pray is another thing. Sometimes we neglect the fact that we are chosen to do this ibadat. Others are deprived of doing this ibadat. They're mahroom of performing this salat. You and I have this ability. We've been chosen to perform this. So this is heightened to the point that if we feel hurt by something during the prayers, or a sharp object or a sting of an insect takes place while we're praying, what do? Do you break your prayer? You slightly go and you remove that thing and then you go back and concentrate on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the extent of it. And of course, if your level of concentration toward your Rabb was higher, like the one that Amirul Mu'mineen, Imam al-Muttaqeen, Ali ibn Abi Talib ﷺ had, then even if the arrow was taken out of your leg, which was pierced into your leg, you won't feel a pain while it's taken out because you're so focused on God Almighty. But not as focused when a person comes and asks for zakat. While you're praying, you have the concentration and the ability to go ahead and help out that individual as well. So both ways you see that you're doing this duty toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As far as us are concerned, coming back to our discussion, almost too often our minds are overly occupied with worldly affairs. Or it may be that we find ourselves yawning and swinging to and fro while standing, scratching ourselves, fiddling with our clothes while prayers is going on. Although this is a natural human weakness, we must try to be more conscious of preserving our acts of worship and try to amend our mistakes as much as possible. Well, you will be doing all of these things, but try to limit them as much as possible. Now, while these things were not enough, playing with your hair or your clothes and fiddling with all of those things, another thing that takes our minds away from salat is the gadgets that all of us carry around with us. The sound of the gadget, that takes your mind from salat all the way to wherever it can take. So the concentration can so easily be destroyed just by another sound which is different. And therefore, we need to be careful of that. Number 2, those who refrain from vain acts. Quran mentions the Arabic word lagh, which refers to idle talk, falsehood, vain acts, or anything which is meaningless in purpose and may become a source of hindrance in achieving the real purpose of life. So to worship and please Allah and refrain from all that is forbidden. It's very difficult to attain that. It is easier said than done. For a believer though, time is of essence. How many times, while we might be spending and wasting our time, we'll tell our kids, make sure that you utilize your time properly. Time is of essence. Every minute counts. When we were your age, we used to, you get this a lot from your parents, and then they'll give the same thing to their children as well. When we were your age, we would do this. We won't waste time in this. We won't do that. Sometimes it's true. And as times are changing, it is indeed, we realize the worth. As your time starts to climb, you realize the precious worth of the time. Ask people who have very limited time. Nobody knows when their death will come. But when person sees the signs of death now, in front of him, that's where a person starts to what? Start counting hours and weeks and months and even seconds sometimes, that I want to make sure that I do everything in my possession before time runs out on me. But that's not the way it should be. That when you are, facing this inevitable thing, because death is not going to wait when you are 100 years old. Death could come to you, as young as 10, 15, 20, 30, at any time. And when your time is up, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send this angel of death. So therefore, don't wait that when I'm 60 or 70 or 80, then I'll start focusing more on, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. That mu'min is this who avoids vain talk. No, I'll start avoiding vain talks when I'm at that age group, for example. So therefore, the believer does not wish to casually engage in anything which may result in a loss of opportunity to attain Allah's mercy and blessings. They try to strike the right balance between the worldly affairs. So nobody's saying, let go of the worldly affairs altogether. No, you need to strike a right balance between the two. Worldly affairs as well as the remembrance of Allah by consciously turning towards Him for help and guidance. They seek that which is beneficial for them in this world and the hereafter, and ask for protection against all kinds of evil and vain talks. This is so, you can so easily relate to this, that in present times, we can associate lagh with many things. I'll count, and see if you can count with me. Lagh could be translated as gossip. Lagh could be translated as, sometime watching TV. Lagh could be translated as swiping through useless videos on your phone. Lagh could be translated as listening to music. Lagh could be translated as social media. Lagh could be translated as spending time and engaging in social gatherings for the sole purpose of pleasing others and other similar acts, and so on and so forth. All of these things fall under the category of lagh. Again, as easy it is to fall prey to these activities which have very little or no benefit whatsoever, we must make it, a habit to seek help repeatedly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to try to discipline ourselves for the greater benefit in this world and inshallah in the hereafter. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Third discussion in this ayat is those who are mindful of their religious dues, those who purify their wealth. The word zakat has been mentioned in several places in Quran, and particularly in this surah, in conjunction with the purification of one's wealth. So whenever the concept of zakat comes, or the concept of khums comes, or the concept of sadaqah comes, it's usually under the category of purification. In fact, if you look at the word zakat itself, what does it mean? Zakah, yuzakki, yazku, all of these are the conjugatives of purification. Zakah, yazki is for purification with the za, with the zay, not with the dal. With the dal, it's someone who's smart, zaki. But zakah from zay means purification. And tazkiyah, we talk about that as well. So all of that is from purification. So that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in order to highlight the importance of detaching this extra wealth from you, called it to be purification. Nothing else. You don't want to take this as any other unwan. It is called purification. It's called zakat. It's called khums. It's called zakat. Why? So that you understand that this is the means of purification. Not only that it purifies your wealth, but also purifies you. Now that's where we don't understand the purification of the self that comes when you remove this extra from yourself. Speaking of the believers, they are mindful of calculating their annual dues which are upon them in the form of zakat, in the form of khums, and give it to those who are eligible to receive it. The benefit that the believers receive out of this noble act is that they purify themselves in the process of lust of material possession, which will ultimately be left behind. How do you purify yourself? When you are capable of detaching something which is your hard-earned money, then you will not have any lust for the riches and the wealth which is out there, which you have not earned yourself. When you are able to remove and detach that which is your sole possession, then you won't lay an eye on those things which are not your possession. So that's the purification of the soul that comes with it. And of course, you become humble in terms of moral values as well. Additionally, scholars suggest that paying zakat and khums also purifies the lives of other people in the society when the wealth is distributed equally amongst all of them. So in the age where materialism is promoted almost in every sector of economy in the form of commercialization, be it in education, brands, businesses, crypto, NFT, you name it, we must hold on firmly to the rope of Allah and be sincere in practicing our fundamentals. We should consistently strive to purify our wealth by paying the dues which are, once a year, not something which is done on regular basis, so that we should not delay it unnecessarily. Acts of sadaqah and charity are also, have the similar benefits as well. Number 4, those who preserve their chastity. This is an important one. While you say, well, salat is something which we talk a great deal about. Vain talks is also something which we can relate because of the social vices that exist. Now, we understand the concept of zakat and khums is important for the society to function properly. But you look at 14 centuries ago, these ayat were revealed. How they're so relevant even to the society that we live in today. There's no expiry date. I've said this before. There's no expiry date on Quran. Quran did not come with an expiry date that will expire at this age or this year or whatever the case may be. It is always going to be relevant and genuine as far as your code and conducts are concerned. Look at what it says, those who preserve their chastity. Maybe in the Middle Ages it might not have been the case, but now you see how things that are widespread. People, verses pertaining to chastity implied to that those who seek to please Allah and earn His pleasure for the greater good must practice modesty in all affairs and refrain from indulging in all unlawful acts. Whether it has to do with relationship or whether it has other meanings of unlawful acts. This is a supreme characteristic of believers. Allah said, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Mu'min is someone who protects his private parts. Mu'min is someone who protects his chastity. Mu'min is someone who is modest. That's the real definition of mu'min, who are fearful of displeasing Allah. They're wary of Allah's presence, that He's always watching. Alam ya'lam bi anna Allah yara. He's constantly, there's a surveillance upon you. He's constantly watching you. And your thoughts as well. People and you and I may only see what is out there as far as the physical actions of the people are concerned, but Allah is also watching as far as our intentions are concerned. But it's the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He does not punish us for the ill intentions. Although on the contrary, He rewards us for good intentions even if they don't materialize. That's the mercy of Allah. That for the ill intentions He overlooks, but for the good intention He rewards you even if they don't materialize. They are aware and holding their desires, especially the carnal desires, a part of human nature, but indulging in a relationship in an unlawful way is strictly prohibited in Islam and severely punishable. Hence, they strictly guard their thoughts and they observe chastity. Among many of the ills present in today's society is that of immodesty. I don't think we need to highlight that more than it is already highlighted in front of us. Sometimes it's a misconception, while we understand outside of the realm of Islam, But within the realm of Islam, a misconception and exploitation of beauty. Some people translate, this is beauty. This is how you supposed to display your beauty, for example. And the notion of gender fluidity, men, women, boys, and girls are all equally subject to it. As Muslims, we need to practice and preserve our teachings and raise awareness against that which is unlawful and forbidden in Islam. How easily sometimes we just go ahead and crush the Islamic values without even realizing it. So quickly we are able to squash. Oh, Islam says this, that's fine. I'm not really that religious. So easily we'll squash away and kill those Islamic values that are forbidden in Islam, especially when it comes to raising our future generations. Often they are more susceptible. You and I may not be. Although I don't put myself in your category, but those who are, mashallah, raised in an Islamic environment and brought up, let's say, in another part of the world and have a more concrete, foundation, you might not be susceptible to it. But the children growing up, being raised over here, they're very susceptible to these ills, which include casual exposure to, different things. I don't even sometimes consider, mentioning these words from the pulpit and from the minbar, because I believe that they are not even worthy of being mentioning from the pulpit. Casual mixing and, relationships outside of marriage and other things that where your minds can easily reach. So, just to recap, Allah says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Mu'min is someone who is successful. Those who avoid vain talk, those who carry out their duty of zakat, they guard their private parts, and, but they don't need to guard their private parts in a legal relationship. Then they will not be standing, blameworthy. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq and ability that we are mu'min according to the criterion explained in these ayat of Surah Mu'minun. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to attain this height of iman by practicing this religion in the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala demands is to be practiced. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of our awaited Imam and make us amongst the helpers and the soldiers of Imam. Inna ahsan al-hadith wa ablagh al-mu'idha kitabullahi a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim wal 'asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilus salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحليم الكريم غافر الذنب وقابل التوب وهو الغفور الرحيم سبحان من سبقت رحمته غضبه وبسط اليدين بالرحمة سبحان من لم يكلف نفسا إلا دون وسعها وأفان السيئات ولم يجاز بها سبحان من لا يزداد على معاصي العباد إلا كرما وجودا ولا كثرة الذنوب إلا عفوا وصفحا نشهد أن لا إله إلا هو لطوف على العباد بجوده والعباد على المذنبين بعلمه ونشهد أن محمدا نبيه وحبيبه سيد المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين بعثه رحمة للعالمين ألا قد أمركم الله في محكم كتابه بالصلاة على نبيه وحبيبه فقال تعليما لكم وتشريفا للصفي إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيد المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وعلى إمام المسلمين وقائد الغر المحجلين أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى سيدة نساء العالمين وبذة خاتم النبيين سيدتنا فاطمة بنت رسول الله صلوات الله عليها وعلى الحسن المجتبى وعلى الحسين الشهيد بكربلاء وعلي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي عليهم الصلاة والسلام. اللهم صل على مولانا صاحب الزمان، ما هي آثار البدع والطغيان، هادم أبنية الشرك والنفاق، حاسد فروع البغي والشقاق، صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آبائه الكرام ما اتصلت الليالي والأيام. اللهم عجل فرجا وسهل مخرجا، واكحل ناظرنا بنظرة منا إليه، واجعلنا من المستشهدين بين يديه، وتفضل على أمرائنا المؤمنين بمزيد التوفيقات وازدياد الإقبال وعلو الدرجات. اللهم افعل بنا ما أنت أهله، ولا تفعل بنا ما نحن أهله، بجاه محمد وآله المعصومين صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين. ممن يذكر فتنفع ذكره، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. الله أكبر الله أكبر، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله، أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله، أشهد أن عليا ولي الله، أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح، حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين، إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين، اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض، الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين، وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم. ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا، بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. قل يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين، ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين. قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع، ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائمة. قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار بجاه محمد وآله الأطهار. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر بحول الله وقوته يقوم ويقعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمد الله أكبر ربنا افرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين بجاه محمد وآله الطاهرين الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف الله أكبر الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد تسبيح جناب فاطمة الزهراء سلام الله عليها بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. All of us together. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة الابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. صل على
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Today's Jummah lunch is sponsored by Mr. and Mrs. Agha Hussain Ali. Please recite a Surah Fatiha for their deceased relatives as well as yours. Kazim Bhai, can you turn off the screen in the ladies' hall, please? Just a quick announcement that we have a janaza right after Namaz-e-Asr. You are requested to move to Hazrat Abu Talib Hall, right across from here. You don't need your shoes. And inshallah we will have Salatul Janaza. Just quickly, if I can ask you to please recite a Surah Fatiha for the marhum Asif Ali Sheikh, who passed away yesterday, and his janazah inshallah will take place today. Recite a Surah Fatiha for him. Bismillah. Weekend upon us. As a reminder, start your day right with Salatul Fajr. Saturday and Sunday especially, we start with Salatul Fajr at 5 a.m., followed by a Quran discussion, and then hot breakfast is served in the basement, and then Sunday the same way. We have Salatul Fajr at 5 a.m., followed by Dua Sabah and Ziyarat Ashura, followed by Dua and the breakfast that is served. Before I conclude, because there aren't any other announcements today, I just wanted to announce that a young lady, Nakwa Yellow Duke, who is in the ladies' hall right now, if I can ask her to turn on the mic, she will be reciting the Shahada, and she will be embracing the religion of Islam, inshallah. So you turn off the screen, but the picture is still on this. So whoever turned off the screen, make sure also you turn off the, the picture is still on this. So sister, do you have it on, the microphone? Yes. Okay. So she will inshallah be reciting the Shahadatain in front of all of you. I will ask her to repeat this. So Sister Ankwa Yellow Duke, who was previously adherent to the Christian faith, on this 13th day of May 2022, corresponding to 12th day of Shawwal 1443, with her, the applicant is, without any, force or compulsion, is by her choice, freedom of choice, embracing the religion of Islam. So I will ask her to repeat the words of Shahada after me. Ready, sister?
Yes.
Ashhadu
Ashhadu
alla ilaha
la ilaha
illallahu
illallahu
wa ashhadu
wa ashhadu
anna
anna
Muhammadan
Muhammadan
Rasulullah
Rasulullah
wa ashhadu
wa ashhadu
anna
anna
Aliyan
aliyan
waliyullah
waliyullah
wa wasiyyu
walisiyo
Rasulillah
Rasulullah
wa khalifatahu
wa khalifatahu
bila fasl.
bila fasl.
Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ya Rasulullah. Ya. So we'll just translate that in English as well. So if you can repeat, I testify that there's no God besides Allah. Repeat, sister. I testify. Turn off the mic, huh? If you can turn the mic back on again.
I testify
That there's no God besides Allah.
that there's no God besides Allah.
And I testify that Muhammad
And I testify that Muhammad
is the messenger of Allah.
is the messenger of Allah.
And I testify that Ali
I testify Habib,
is the wali of Allah
the Wahi of Allah,
and direct successor of Prophet
and
Muhammad.
the rest is of Prophet Muhammad.
Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So we have a form, and inshallah we'll give it to her, and all of you are witnesses to this event. Thank you very much. Let's recite Dua Sihat for all of those people who are in need of dua, suffering, struggling, going through difficult time, physically, financially, spiritually. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring them out of this difficulty swiftly and quickly, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Amma yujibu al-muttarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su. Amma yujibu al-muttarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su. Amma yujibu al-muttarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء ويجعلكم خلفاء الأرض أإله مع الله قليلا ما تذكرون. Let's proceed with Salatul Asr. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. صلاة العصر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته وقوموا وقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بحول الله وقوته يقوم وقعد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد محمد. تسبيح فاطمة الزهراء سلام الله عليها. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام، وأسأله أن يتوب علي توبة عبد ذليل خاضع فقير بائس مسكين مستكين مستجير، لا يملك لنفسه نفعا ولا ضرا ولا موتا ولا حياة ولا نشورا. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من نفس لا تشبع، ومن قلب لا يخشى، ومن علم لا ينفع، ومن صلاة لا ترفع، ومن دعاء لا يسمع. اللهم إني أسألك اليسر بعد العسر، والفرج بعد الكرب، والرخاء بعد الشدة. اللهم ما بنا من نعمة فمنك، لا إله إلا أنت، أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. اللهم صل على محمد وآله.
Mutawajjih Ziyad today will recite the Ziyarat of 6th Imam Syed Muhammad. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum ya Nabi Allah. Assalamu alaikum ya Amir al-Mu'minin ya Qasim al-Jannati wa nar. Assalamu alaikum ya Sayyidin Sa'al al-Alameen. Assalamu alaikum ya Ahl Bayt an-Nubuwah. Jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum ya Imam Sadiq. Assalamu alaikum ya Wasid Natiq. Assalamu alaikum ya Faiz Sahib. Assalamu alaikum ya Sanam al-Azamu. Assalamu alaikum ya Sirat al-Akwamu. Assalamu alaikum ya Misbah al-Zulumat ya Dafi al-Mu'zalat ya Miftah al-Khairat. Assalamu alaikum ya Ma'adin al-Barakat. Assalamu alaikum ya Sahib al-Hujaj wal-Alat. Assalamu alaikum ya Sahib al-Barahin al-Wazihat. Assalamu alaikum ya Nasir ad-Dinillah ya Nashir Hukmillah ya Fazil al-Kitabat ya Kashif al-Kurbat. Assalamu alaikum ya Amid al-Sadiqin ya Al-Insan al-Nadiqin ya Khalf al-Khaifin. Assalamu alaikum ya Zaim al-Sadiqin al-Salihin. Assalamu alaikum ya Sayyid al-Muslimin. Assalamu alaikum ya Hadi al-Muzallin. Assalamu alaikum ya Sakan al-Ta'in. Ashhadu ya Mawlaya annaka al-huda wa artul wuska wa shamsu sufa wa bahar al-bada wa kaf al-waraba masul al-ala sallallahu ala ruweka wa banik wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum ya Sahib al-Asr wa zaman ya Khalifat ar-Rahman ya Imam al-Insi wal Jan ya Kaabat al-Iman ya Tafsir al-Quran. Assalamu alaikum ya Sharik al-Quran. Assalamu alaikum ya Imam zamanana ajallallahu farajak wa sallallahu marajak wa zuhurak wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Inshallah, we'll have the Salatul Janaza in Hazrat Abu Talib Hall, so please make your way to the hall, and inshallah we'll start with Salatul Janaza right away. ख़वातीन पीछे से उधर से
कुर्सी नहीं रखी इतनी जी
The family wants to know who and how much to pay.
या
अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला। बैठ जाइए आप लोग। औज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम, बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम, अल्हम्दुलिल्लाहि रब्बिल आलमीन, अस्सलातु वस्सलामु अला अशरफिल अंबिया वल मुरसलीन, खातिमिन नबिय्यीन अबिल क़ासिम मुहम्मद, अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला व अहले बैतिहि अत्तय्यबीन अत्ताहिरीन अल-मासूमीन अल्लज़ीना अज़हबल्लाहु अन्हुम अर्रिज्स व तह्हरहुम तत्हीरा, अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मदिन व आलिहि। अम्मा बाद, फ़क़द क़ाल अल्लाहु तबारक व तआला व क़ौलुहुल हक़ व हुवा अस्दक़ुल क़ाइलीन। बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। इन्नल्लाह यअमुरुकुम बिल अदलि वल इहसान व ईताइ ज़िल क़ुरबा व यनहा अनिल फ़हशाइ वल मुनकर वल बग़ी यइज़ुकुम लअल्लकुम तज़क्करून। व क़ाल अयज़न इन्ना लिल्लाहि व इन्ना इलैहि राजिऊन। सल्लु अला मुहम्मद व आलि मुहम्मद। Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Very briefly, just a few words of Masai. Please recite a Surah Fatiha for Marhum Asif Ali Sheikh. Bismillah. Indeed, to Him we belong and to Him we shall all return. These ayat, these words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Quran resonate with all of us. The reality and the haqiqat of this life, that we are here for a temporary time. This is a temporary abode, and we shall all leave this world one day or another. With that said, of course, it is very difficult to fathom and comprehend losing a loved one, especially a fatherly figure, someone whom you used to refer to as father or dad or baba. Officially now, you'll be considered yatim with the departure of this individual. No matter how old he was, still you were not called yatim up until this moment. Now you're officially called a yatim because of this fatherly figure leaving this world forever. But of course, you and I are here to pay our condolences to the bereaved family for the loss that they have suffered. And we'll be here for this majlis, we'll be here for this janaza, and then we'll accompany you until the burial. And then the soyam majlis, the chehlum majlis, will be here. But what the family goes through is really difficult. When all things are settled, everything is done and taken care of, that's when you really realize the importance of the person that you have lost. And even sometimes we take these personalities for granted in our lives, and we only understand their worth after they have left us. And therefore, if it wasn't for the masaib of Ahl Bayt, it would have been very difficult for us to cope with our own losses. अगर उनकी मुसीबत हमारे सामने नहीं होती, उनके मसाइब हमारे सामने ना होते, तो हमारे लिए बड़ा मुश्किल था अपने इन मुसीबतों में अपने आंसुओं को पोंछना। यकीनन जहाँ करबला के मसाइब एक आम इंसान के दिल को चीर सकते हैं, पारा पारा कर सकते हैं, उस मुसीबत उज़्मा को सुन के वहीं उस गमज़दा दिल के लिए मुदावा भी बन सकते हैं। जैसे ही वो अपने गम को उनके गम में ज़म करेगा, शख्स अपने गम को भूल जाएगा, इसलिए कि उनका गम यकीनन हर गम से बुलंद बालातर है, उनकी मुसीबत हर मुसीबत से बुलंद बालातर है। अमीरुल मोमिनीन उस लहज़े, उस वक्त जब उनको ज़रबत लग चुकी है, उसके बावजूद मौला मुत्तक़ियान अपने फ़र्जंदान को ये नसीहत करते हुए नज़र आए हैं कि मेरे दुश्मन के साथ अच्छा सलूक करना, उसके हाथ को ज़ोर से मत बांधना, उसको पानी पिला देना, उसके साथ अच्छाई और नेकी से पेश आना। मौला ये आपका दुश्मन है, आप उसके साथ भी अच्छाई से पेश आना चाहते हैं। कहा यही दर्स करबला है, यही दर्स अहले बैत है। शायद अमीरुल मोमिनीन ये पैगाम दे रहे थे 40 साल कबल करबला से कि ए कूफे वालों, आज मैं कैदियों के हाथ खोल रहा हूँ, कल अगर तुम्हारे दरमियान कोई कैदी आए तो उनके ऊपर सख्ती से पेश मत आना। अजरुकुम अल्लाह, क्या मुसीबत थी सैयद शुहदा की, किस तरीके से उन्होंने इस गम को झेला होगा। जो लोग चले गए पहले उनके लिए आसानी थी, जो आखिर तक रुके ना उनके लिए बड़ी सख्त और मुश्किल थी। कहते हैं हुसैन ने अपने असहाब को पहले भेज दिया, अपने बच्चों को पीछे रखा। नहीं, उसका मकसद यही था कि जो जल्दी जाएगा उसकी मुश्किल उतनी जल्दी आसान हो जाएगी। शहादत हर एक को आनी है, जो पहले जाएगा उसकी प्यास जल्दी बुझ जाएगी। लेकिन हाँ, बच्चों को पीछे इसलिए रखा ताकि अहले बैत का जो इम्तिहान है वो सबसे बढ़ के इम्तिहान है। लेकिन हाँ, जैसे ही बच्चों को भेजने की बारी आई, हुसैन ने तजब्जुब से काम ना लिया। जैसे ही फर्जंद ने कहा बाबा मक्तल में जाने की इजाज़त दीजिए, तो कहा तकद्दम वलदी। एक लहजे के लिए भी ना सोचा कि जाने की दावत दे रहे हैं कत्लगाह की तरफ। अजरुकुम अल्लाह, खुदा किसी गम में ना रुलाए सिवाय गम आले मोहम्मद के। मगर हुसैन की मुसीबत सबसे बढ़ के है। एक एक लाशे को उठा के लाते थे, करबला के मक्तल से लाते थे और लेके जाते थे। मैं कहूँगा जब तक वो तन्हा रह गए हुसैन तो कितना सख्त मरहला होगा। आप सोचिए इमाम हुसैन की मुश्किल को अगर समझ सकते हैं कि जिसने 71 लाशें उठा चुका है अब खुद चला है मक्तल की जानिब। ए बाबा, वो बच्ची जो बाप के सीने पे सोती थी, एक दफा हुसैन चलना चाहते हैं, देखा घोड़ा आगे नहीं बढ़ता, कहा है घोड़े ये आखिरी मर्तबा है, अब जहमत न दूंगा। लेकिन क्या देखा बेज़बान जानवर ने जमीन की तरफ इशारा किया। हुसैन क्या देखते हैं, घोड़े के सुमों से बच्ची लिपटी हुई है। आते हैं उतर के बच्ची को गले से लगाया। ऐ सकीना, तुमसे विदा कर ली थी, अब बाबा खुदा हाफिज कर चुके थे। जैसे ही आपके बाबा आपसे विदा करके जा रहे हैं, हुसैन भी विदा कर चुके थे। कहा बाबा एक आखिरी मर्तबा अपने कलेजे में, अपने सीने पे सुला दे। हुसैन ने बच्ची की फरमाइश पूरी की, अपने सीने पे लगाया। थोड़ी देर तक दोनों बाप बेटी गश में थे। ज़ैनब ने आगे उठाया, हुसैन ने सकीना को ज़ैनब के हाथ में दिया। कहा है बेटी सकीना, अब जब तुम्हारी माँ तुम्हें कहीं सोने को कहे, अरे तो तंग ना करना, चुपचाप सो जाना। आज करार ये पाया है तुम्हारा भैया अली असगर बाबा के सीने पे सोएगा और तुम माँ के सीने पे। अला लानतुल्लाह कौम ज़ालिमीन वसे आलमुल्लज़ीना ज़लमू अय्युमन क़ल्बिन। एक दफ़ा सूरह फातिहा की तिलावत करके मरहूम आसिफ अली शेख की रूह को इशारा करें। बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। या कना नमाज जनाजा वाजिब है तो आप लोग नियत कीजिएगा। लाइन बना लें, सीधी लाइन बना लें, मेक श्योर स्ट्रेट लाइन है। थोड़ा सा और आगे आना है तो आगे आ जाएं थोड़ा सा, लेकिन मेक श्योर द लाइन्स आर स्ट्रेट। Stand in straight lines. There's no ruku, there's no sujood. There are 5 takbirat, and in between each takbir there will be a dua. I will read it slowly. You also have these placards with you, so you can repeat after me. Make sure everybody recites it. हर किसी को पढ़ना है। नियत करें कि मैं नमाज पढ़ता हूँ हाजिर मैयत के लिए वाजिब कुर्बतन इल्लल्लाह, और नियत मानने के बाद से 5 तकबीरें हैं। हर तकबीर के दरमियान एक छोटी सी दुआ है। अल्लाहु अकबर, अशहदु अल्ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाहु वहदहु ला शरीका लहु व अशहदु अन्ना मुहम्मदन अब्दुहु व रसूलुहु अरसलहु بالحق بشيرا ونظيرا بين يدي الساعة. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وبارك على محمد وآل محمد وارحم محمدا وآل محمد كأفضل ما صليت وباركت وترحمت على إبراهيم وآل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. وصل على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين والشهداء والصديقين وجميع عباد الله الصالحين. الله أكبر. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات التابع منهم والأموات. تابع بيننا وبينهم بالخيرات إنك مجيب الدعوات إنك على كل شيء قدير. الله أكبر. اللهم إنا هذا عبدك وابن عبدك وابن أمتك نزل بك وأنت خير منزول به. اللهم إنا لا نعلم منه إلا خيرا وأنت أعلم به منا. اللهم إن كان محسنا فزد في إحسانه وإن كان مسيئا فتجاوز عنه واغفر له. اللهم اجعله عندك في أعلى اللين واخلف على أهله في الغابرين وارحمه برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. الله أكبر. فاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Viewing happy? देखते हैं निकल जाएंगे हमें खाना रहने देते हैं viewing की जरूरत नहीं. So because there's very shortage of time, inshallah we'll skip the viewing, right? And we'll just move to the hearse. We'll be going to Bahishazara, 535 Texas Road, in Morganville, New Jersey. You can follow the hearse as well. Tonight after Namaz-e-Maghriban, offer Namaz-e-Hadiye Mayyat or Namaz-e-Salatul Wahshat.